Hello loves and welcome to my new library. If you're interested in seeing how this was put together, stay tuned. I'm going to have a new library setup video coming up really soon, and if it's already here then you can check this link here or look in the description, which I'm really excited about. That being said, let's get into this video, which is going over the wrap up for July. As some of you may know, I have been in the process of moving and didn't have access to all of my books, so the list this month is actually pretty small. I did start reading Gallant by V.E. Schwab while I was driving across the country, and I ended up finishing it probably the first or second week into living in a new state. So this is a story about a young orphan who is mute and who can see basically ghouls. So it's a spooky sort of story situation, and one day while she's living at her orphanage, she gets a letter from her uncle basically saying, "We miss you and we want you home." So she goes to the estate and finds out that things aren't quite what they seem. So there's definitely this nice, fun, spooky atmosphere to it. This is a young adult, middle grade / adult novel. V.E. Schwab in an interview ended up saying that she wanted this to be a book for all ages, even though the character is on the young side. And I feel like that's pretty much true. Like, I really enjoyed the book. I didn't think there was anything that was too age defining aside from the actual age of the main character, who I believe is like 13 or something. I don't actually remember the age. I just pulled that out of my head. She is pretty young, so that's kind of the only thing. But everything else is kind of ambiguous in the story. It's kind of just not about that. So it is very good for all ages. I absolutely adored it. Now, I saw a lot of people who were super disappointed. Even though I was still thinking of this as a 5-star prediction and I was super excited about it, I was a little hesitant and worried that I wasn't going to enjoy it as much as I did. So perhaps going into it thinking that it might be awful made it better for me than other people who were thinking it was going to be amazing and then it ended up not being that great for them. I loved the atmosphere. The story was interesting. There wasn't anything necessarily amazing about it, but it was still really enjoyable, and I ended up giving it like 5 stars. So V. Schwab is still one of my favorite authors because I just love all of the books that she writes. So thank you, V. Schwab. Now, the second book that was Joan Hess' Poisoned Pins. So this is a cozy mystery that I ended up getting at a little secondhand rummage sale thing here in Minnesota. And I thought, hey, it might be fun. It's just a simple paperback cozy mystery. And I wasn't wrong. So when I first picked this up, I kind of hated it. Our main character is a amateur sleuth / bookshop owner who has a young daughter. She's about to turn 40. She is in a relationship with a local cop, and she lives right next to a sorority, and some strange things happen at the sorority. Somebody ends up dead, and she obviously goes on and tries to solve what happened. And unfortunately, the way that the character is written seems like the author wanted her to be witty and relatable and interesting, but to me it kind of came off as like bitchy and mean and annoying. So I didn't really think that I would end up enjoying this book in the end, because I was just all like, I really dislike how snarky and rude she can be, at least in her head. And so I wasn't enjoying that. But then as the story went on and I was interested in seeing what was up, I got to a point where things started to get pretty interesting, and I stopped noticing how annoying she was, I guess, and just started enjoying the story, and overall ended up liking it. I believe this is probably a 3 stars for me. I wouldn't say there's anything phenomenal about it. It was fun. I probably wouldn't read it again, but I ain't mad at it. In the end, it was fun, it was cute. Then, if I'm being honest, I don't actually remember the rest of the order. At some point, I started reading We All Fall Down by Rose Zabo, and this book I ended up getting in my Illumicrate box for July. I think it was the July box. It could have been the June, but I got it in July. That's when I opened it. And I was so excited because look at how friggin' beautiful this copy is. We've got I guess it's a printed signed plate. It doesn't look printed. And then it's got the beautiful edges, and the cover art is gorgeous. Even the regular cover art, because it's basically the same, although I think this just has the gold foiling that the regular might not, but it's friggin' gorgeous. So I was super excited to get this and totally ready to jump on and read it for the month. And then I heard some negative criticisms about the book and I got really nervous, but I was like, you know what? I read a book from her before, which admittedly I started off not liking this and then ended up loving it in the end because the writing was so beautiful. So I was like, you know what? Let's give it a shot and I'll make a whole video out of it. So if you're interested in seeing my start to end thought process of whether or not I thought this book was as bad as people were saying, specifically whether or not I thought it was racist, because that was some of the worries that I heard from it. Spoiler alert, I don't think so. I actually ended up loving this book. But if you would like to see the journey and some of my thoughts and just the general process along with me going antiquing and stuff, you could catch that vlog video up here or here, wherever. But yeah, long story short, this is a story, the first in a duology, I believe, about a hidden magical city within the regular world. And in this city, we have monsters and misfits, basically. I don't think that's all that is in this city, but that is a big part of the city. There's a hospital that people who want to change something about themselves tend to go, but there is a darker, sinister side to it. And a lot of the times the scientists that are involved at the hospital end up doing experiments on people instead, and not everybody actually comes out normal or the way that they were intended or at all. So we have these four main characters who are all kind of involved in this big story plot that is happening around this city and this kingdom and the absence of magic and kind of bringing back magic into this world. And there's a lot of stuff going on. I don't know if I'm describing it quite right, but it was very enjoyable. It's very representative. There's a lot of diversity in here. You've got queer rep, you have multiple nationalities, you have a lot of different genders. It was beautiful and I really enjoyed it. And I wouldn't necessarily say that the story is amazing or fantastic, and especially if you are a fantasy person, this may be subpar to you, but I think people should read it. I think people should give it a shot. And I think people should realize that just because a book has racism in it doesn't mean that the book is racist. There is racism. If you're not comfortable with that, especially with a white author writing about that, be aware. But I think the author, did a good job being respectful and making it clear that they didn't condone these negative things that happen while having it still exist within the world and making commentary on it, but not making a book about it. Because admittedly, I feel like it may have been inappropriate if the story was supposed to be about the struggles of, you know, a BIPOC character written by a white author. I wouldn't necessarily say that's a terrible thing, but I probably wouldn't want to read it. In that case, I would prefer to read the same story by a person of color, like an own voice story in that scenario. But since that's not what this is, I thought it was great. I love the representation. I think more authors should do this. So I hope more people read that. And I would really love to hear other people's thoughts to see if people agree with me, disagree, and why. I really want to know why people think that this is problematic, and if you actually read it, if you do as well, since I actually didn't. I thought it was actually really respectful, really well done, and really interesting, especially since a lot of those things that people thought were problematic were at the point of the story, and I think we're done pretty well considering. So, glowing review. I think this is a really high 4 stars, possibly a 5-star, depending on what the second book in the duology turns out to be, because that will definitely bump it up if I end up loving how the overall story goes. Just saying. All right, next up we have Patron Saints of Nothing by Randy Rebay. And this is a YA novel about a Filipino-American who finds out that his Filipino cousin is murdered. And he doesn't know what happened. His family is keeping it on the hush hush, and no one is telling him or talking to him about it. and he decides that he wants to go to the Philippines and see if he can find out what happened to his cousin. And it is a strong and impactful and emotional and really well done story. I really, really enjoyed it. I definitely was worried about it and wasn't as excited about it as I was with other things. I knew it was going to be difficult. I felt it probably was not going to be something that I really wanted to read since it is a YA and I tend to feel about YAs. But because it was so emotionally impactful and in some ways relatable, me being a mixed Jamaican American, so having that comparison and that guilt for being a American person of color and having those experiences and those privileges compared to your family or the people that you care about, and sometimes not being in the loop on really important things. It was just really relatable in a way that made me a little sad, but I think it was really well done, really thought-provoking, and it really makes me want to be a little bit better at learning about things outside of my country. Since I know as an American, I could be very self-obsessed, I guess, with only the things that are going on here, and it's really easy to forget about the struggles that other people are experiencing, and I don't want to be that ignorant. I do want to say that it's a 5-star. So some of that rating probably has to do with the emotional impact. So realistically, it's probably a really high 4 stars, since I don't necessarily know if this is a new all-time favorite or if it's a book that I would really want to read again, but it did hit me pretty hard and I think it was well done, and yeah, I do recommend it. So high 4 stars, borderline 5 stars. Okay, and the last completed book for this month was West Side Love Story. This is my Kindle. I ended up doing the Whisper Sync on Kindle, so I sort of listened to the audiobook, and I gotta tell you, I was excited to start reading this because I figured, hey, life is busy, we're in the middle of moving, I want something easy for me to keep up with, so doing a romance would be great. But this is kind of a Romeo and Juliet-esque story where we have 2 characters who are of opposing families that have a big family feud. They find each other, they fall for each other before they know who they are, and then they have to struggle with trying to figure out how to be together. Now, obviously, there's a whole other story involved. Both of these families are part of mariachi bands, and there's a competition, and there's all kinds of little things that are going on, and family drama, and all of this stuff. And I kind of didn't like it. Like, I wasn't enjoying the experience. I didn't feel like there was enough of the romance aspect. The romance part was the part of romance stuff that I don't enjoy as much, so we missed all of the part that I did enjoy. I didn't really care so much for the other part of the story. Like, it just let me down because I was expecting to have a good time and it was anything but. I was just waiting for it to be done. So I don't actually think the story is bad. The story was great. The writing was nice. The characters were well developed. There were interesting story plots. It was just stuff that I wasn't really into and I wasn't excited about. For me, it's a 2 stars, but in general, I'd say a 3. So 2 stars just because I really wasn't into it, but a 3 because I don't think there's anything wrong with it. So it feels bad giving a book that's fine a 2 stars when I did not like it because of a problem. Usually when I give a book a 2 stars, there's like some glaring problem that I'm like, this is an issue, but like there wasn't. This book is fine. Someone's gonna love it. It just wasn't me. And then, because I don't want to end this monthly wrap-up on a negative note, I am currently reading A Spectre of Justice, so you'll hear more about this in next month's wrap-up because I am actually loving it so far. This is another cozy mystery sort of situation. It's by Mark de Castries, and there is some decent diversity in here. There's some great writing, some interesting mystery plot points. Like overall, I'm really involved, really invested. If I wasn't so busy with moving stuff and setting stuff up like this and working and trying to juggle all of these different things, I would have probably finished this early, but it just, the cards were not in my favor, so I am unfortunately still in the process of reading it. I have not gotten too far into it, but I have been enjoying it. So that's how this month went. If you want to watch more videos from me, check out one of my playlists. If you stuck around, be sure to thumbs up, subscribe, do all of that good stuff, become a bestie if you want exclusive bestie goodie stuff. I'm really excited about the book bestie tier because we're going to have tabletop TBR bestie videos where we do recommendations and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm just really excited. I thank you so much for sticking around. Be sure to include this emoji if you made it this far, and I will catch you in the next video. Until then, bye!